moment here. I'm just going to switch my screen for you so you can see what's going on, and we will get started. So Domus Analytics is a collection of dashboards. We have several different dashboards because you as the user have several different needs. You're going to have a level of comfort. Your clients are going to have a level of comfort. So we want to give you as many options as possible for you to use the stats. Now, all of the data is based on the same underlying MLS data, so you should get the same answers there. And we're going to go through the dashboards from the most simple all the way up to the most complex. So to start off, how are you going to get to the dashboards? Well, that is from the GBAR website. You're going to go to your member login and just log in using your own credentials, and all of the dashboards will be behind there. So that's how you get to them. Feel free to follow along while we're going through this, or go ahead and just watch the screen. And like I said, that video will be available later. So the first one that we're going to go over is the infographic. We refer to this one as pretty, printable, and postable. It's high level. It's just a month snapshot of what happened last month. Now we are on March 1st right now, and you can see this shows January. That's because this dashboard has a couple of days delay on it to allow all of the agents to get in their data that might have needed updating for the last couple days of the month. So you'll see this switch in a couple of days. But maybe you want to go and look at a different month on here. This is the first thing you're going to see across all the dashboards. I've got a little downward facing triangle. Anytime you see that, that means it is a filter that you can interact with, because all of the dashboards are interactive. So all you need to do is click on it, and now you can go back to any point in time that we have on here. So maybe you want to take a look at what happened last summer, and you can see that quickly shifted to what was going on in June. There are also two ways to look at this data, and this is something we just rolled out in February. You can look at it right now. It's defaulting to the year-over-year comparison, but you can change that with a toggle switch at the top and look at what it was month over month. So this is June compared to May for those month over month, or if I want to go back up here and switch back to January, now this is January compared to December, or you can switch that back to your year over year. So on one little page, you have a lot of options here. Now, I said you have filters on the date. That's also down below on your property type and your areas. So you have access to your single family condos and all of the multifamilies. And the areas are really fun because as soon as you switch this one, we've been looking at Metro Boston, but maybe I want to go look at Southern Norfolk. The town filter next to it is linked to that. So you're only ever going to see the towns that are in Southern Norfolk, and you can switch off and look at any of those that you want. And you have the flexibility to change across all of the areas. This includes not only the 5 regions that are part of the GBAR jurisdiction, but about 20 or so of the adjacent towns. So you have access to all of that in here. Now, the next feature on all of the Domus dashboards is the ability to print this easily. So currently, there are 2 ways to print. I've got a print button up in the top corner on the right, and also one on the bottom. That's because sometime in April-ish, this top button will be going away. We just gave you a little bit of time to get used to it, but you can use either one for right now. They both do exactly the same thing. So I'll click on this bottom one, and it's going to open up whatever print functionality is part of the browser you're using. So I happen to be using a Chrome browser, so this is exactly the same printing feature I would see if I printed through Chrome directly rather than on the dashboard. For Chrome specifically, it behaves very nicely and it listens to the code that we pass through, telling it to be nicely landscaped and fitting on one page. If you're using a different browser, you may need to play with your margins or your scale a little bit. So it really just depends on what you use. But we do support all of the browsers for printing. I will cancel that out. And that is the market infographic. So just that high level, this is great when you want to post on social media, for example, or if you're sending out an email to your clients and saying, hey, here's what's happening in the market. So it's really just what's going on right now. The next one that we're going to move to is our market review. And you can already see this one has more information than that first one did. I have a couple more metrics here on the side. And we've also added that spark line, which represents the last 13 months. Now, I know this because I have both comparisons here from year over year or January of last year to the month over month. And this line is every value in between that. So all I'm doing right now is hovering my mouse over the line and I can see each data point, what happened. Now, what I really like about this dashboard is that you can also see a horizontal dashed line across each one of those spark lines. And that represents the current value of the metric. So without even moving my mouse, or especially if I were to print this out and share this with a client, I can easily see what happened over the last 13 months compared to exactly where we are today. So that's just a really quick little visual for you on this one. Now, another new feature was recently added to this one, where we can now switch from that 13-month comparison to a year-to-date comparison using this toggle switch up in the top right-hand corner. All I'm going to do is click on it, and now that's going to swap over to a year-to-date for, I'm looking at January of 22, but again, if I want to go back and look at a different time period, it's going to show me that time period for the year to date. Another really cool thing that we just did on this one, even since the last training class last week, was I added a little toggle switch here on the top. This one is at that town level, so you can select the individual towns. But for those of you who might work exclusively in Boston, we also have a market review for just Boston. And I just added this little filter button up top to make it one click away for you. So now I'm looking at the Boston only market review, and you still have the ability to change those property types, but now you can drill down into the Boston neighborhoods. So other than that, the functionality is exactly the same as the town one, but we just made that really quick for you to get back here. And same thing, you have the printing function on top and bottom, and you can pop that out to a PDF or print and send to your clients. And if you need to get back to all the towns, you've got the button right there on top again to go back and see all the towns and filter down from there. So that should be really, really quick for you guys to switch back and forth. This one is one of my favorite dashboards. Honestly, I get a lot of people that say, you know, this is the only one I use because it gives me so much information on one page that I don't really need to go anywhere else. So this is my personal favorite. So I said I was going through the dashboards from the easiest to the most complex, but I'm going to switch from here to the monthly dashboard that has everything. And I skipped over one that we'll get back to, and you'll understand why when I get there. So this is the market insights. You can already see this has a much longer time period than any of the other dashboards. And I've got over here on the side what we call our KPI window. That just stands for Key Performance Indicator. It's another way to say metric, so just call it whatever you want to. And the other two, you may have noticed we were looking at January. This one shows you February numbers, even though we are only on the first of the month, because this one does not have a delay on it. So if you really need to see what's happening right now before everybody finishes entering the rest of their data, head over to this one because this has all the information for you. This one is functioning a little bit different on the metrics as well. The other dashboards, you had them all visible. This one, we've made it a filter in the middle. So you can click on here and scroll down through a whole list of metrics. You can use your mouse button to drag the little handle here up and down, or you can use the up and down arrows on your keyboard, whatever is most comfortable for you. So I will pop over to active inventory because that's a fun one to look at. And you can see you're finally dipping up a little bit. So that's great. Wow, almost 40% up from February. That's got to feel good for you guys. I haven't seen that big of a jump in our other markets yet. So that's really exciting to see that. The other dashboards that we looked at, you also had the other filters available on top. On this one, we've made that a filter panel. It's that toggle switch again on the right-hand corner. Pretty much all of the dashboards, you'll see these same types of filters and toggles and things. You can't break anything. So if you aren't sure if you can click on it or not, click on it and try it out. You can't do anything to hurt it. So click around to your heart's content. But you'll see here that we've got more filters available to you. In addition to the property type and region and towns, we also have those neighborhoods right there. I've got price filters, living area, bedrooms, and acres for you as well. So depending on what analysis you need to do, you can use those. So since we're on inventory, I really like doing first-time home buyer analysis. So I'm going to drag this price range filter down to, let's even go to about 400 or so. And now I'm going to hide that filter panel, clicking that toggle button again. And I can see back in 2016, my first-time home buyers had a lot more options to choose from. They had 14 to 1,500 homes available to them across the entire area. And today they have 162. So they've got 1/10 of the available inventory. And this is where you can use the stats to tell the story for you. So when you have somebody saying, why aren't you showing me more options? Well, it's because there really aren't more options. And this is one of the features why this is the most fully functional and members only dashboard, is that I can take this number 162 right here and double click on it. And that's going to open up the list of properties that made up that 162. So now I can see where exactly is that inventory for my first-time home buyers. You can export this to an Excel and then refer to it later. I get agents that will export this and then send it out as part of a mailing campaign and say, hey, here's what happened in your neighborhood. So that's a really great thing to have. That works not only on the numbers here on the side, but any data point I could click on, double click, there we go, and it's going to open up. So that's what makes this a member only dashboard, is that access to those underlying listings. Now, another fun feature on here is that we're looking at that first-time home buyer, but I had it for single family and condo. I can see on the top here that was a default setting. Maybe I want to view that by property type. So just by clicking the button at the bottom here under the chart, I can now break this out to my property types. So if that buyer is looking for a single family, they've only got 21 homes to view right now in their price range. A little more options in the condo market, but not a lot. And maybe you don't really care as much about whether they want a single family or condo, but if you want to look by region, that's one more button over. So I can see across all of those 5 regions, where is most of the inventory? And it actually is in Metro Boston. So this is a really quick way for you to see comparatively what's going on across the areas. And then when I filter into a particular region, the by town becomes a lot more interesting. I can do it right now, but it's going to be messy. But I'll just show you that it is all there. So you aren't limited to the number of comparisons you can do. We'll kick that out to a single line here again. And we've been looking at a by month filter, but I can also change this to a by quarter analysis with clicking the button below that KPI box. And now I'm going to see my active inventory on a quarter by quarter basis, what happened. So you have functionality there that you can use. I'm going to move over and change to one of my other number counting metrics to show you the year comparison, because that's a little more interesting there and you'll understand the difference a little bit better. When I switch to a by year, you also have a year to date option versus an annual option. So when you're looking at year to date, in the box right there, it's going to tell you we're really just looking at the data from the beginning of the year through the end of February in this case, so January and February. But if I want to look at the entirety of each prior year, I can just click that annual button. So now this is going to show me where I am now in comparison to each of the other years. This one becomes really interesting as we get into the 4th quarter, and you can see how close you are and if you're going to meet or exceed or drop below the prior year. So again, depending on the story you're trying to tell, you've got a lot of options here. One other fun trick on this dashboard is maybe the 2016 time frame is too long for the story that you're trying to tell, and you just want to say, hey, let me look at, pre-pandemic, that year before, and into where we are now, all I did right there is I clicked my mouse on this data point over here and dragged it across the screen while I was holding it. And when I released that button, now it just zoomed in for me. So maybe you just want to show that smaller time period or be able to see the more defined ups and downs of what happened. You can zoom in really quickly. And when you're done, you're just going to reset that zoom with this button at the top of the chart, and that pushes you right out. Now, up here in the top left, you can see there's a little check by this time series. That's what we've been looking at, a time series chart. But if you want to click on price distribution right next to it, now it's going to show me the closed sales for all of the property types I have selected and all of the areas by price bucket. Now, I've only been looking at that first time buyer below 400, so I will go and drag in the rest of my price buckets and hide that. And now I can see the whole market, what happened. And again, this also works with that property type, or I could do that by region, so you can quickly see what's going on. This one is really cool as well. It also works across the time period. So you were just looking at 1 month right now, but I can look at quarter and year if I want. So I'm going to click back on time series. And one more thing I want to show you about the filters here, because we do get this question a lot, is let's say you are working with markets higher than $3 million, and that's the highest bucket up here. That's not a limit on the data. That's just because we had to pick a number for the label, and that's where most of the data was under that. So if you are trying to do analysis on any of these slider filters and need to go above that value that's at the top, you're just going to drag that bar from the left all the way over to the right. And now what I have just told the system was show me everything that's above $3 million that closed. There we go. I'll get you no breakout. And now I can see that there were 28 sales above 3 million. So that's just another way you can use that. And when you come back here to start over again, you can see I am in vain trying to drag this little button over. That's because it doesn't know which one of the sliders it wants me to use. The way to get around that is to just grab anywhere on this line, click on it, and then it brings that end slider over for you, and then you can drag it back and forth. You could also do buckets in the middle as well. So you don't have to do one end or the other. You can pick whatever price range you want to work with. Now, just like the other ones, you can also print this and share it out with your clients. A couple of other things I want to highlight on here are a couple of new metrics we just released, which are kind of fun. We've got the percent of cash sales and the percent closed above list price. Those were added last month. So this one, for example, closed above list, it's kind of related to that percent of ask received, but where that one is just giving you that overall number, right? And it usually varies between 98% and 102% is kind of where it always lives. So it's not necessarily that useful. This one is showing you how many of those actually closed above list price. This is not at list price. This is above the last list price. So that's a fun one. 42%. I would love to say you guys are crazy high above the rest of the markets we work in, but you're not. You're falling right in the same range. The whole country is just this crazy as well. And then percent cash sales is our other new metric on there. So you can see where that metric has been going for folks. So that is the Market Insights dashboard. Now, I said I skipped one earlier. I'm going to go back and hit that one right now. That's the weekly trends. And the reason I skipped it is because the operations of this dashboard are pretty much the same as Market Insights. So you already have seen the metrics down in the middle drop down, and you've already seen the filter panel here that drops with the toggle switch. There's a little less filtering capability on here because weekly is a little more volatile. And we put a little less information, but you still have your comparison where you are right now, where you were, and that year-ish or so trend of time. And what we found is that a lot of agents are using this weekly dashboard when they are actively working with a client, whether that's somebody who's trying to buy, who wants to know, well, should I try to get something sooner? What happened this week? Or whether that's your seller saying, hey, should I change my price? I don't know what's going on. And a month can be too long to wait sometimes. So we have found this to be really popular when you're actively engaging with particular people. So now I'm going to switch over to our pricing dashboard. And this one is a departure from the aggregated stats we've been looking at. And this one actually exists because of an agent in Boston. So whenever we tell people how to use this dashboard, we always give you guys credit for it. This was an agent who said, hey, I'm selling down, right in Boston, and I'm having trouble with, getting to a price on this neighborhood because it's a really small area. And there aren't enough listings for me to get to a price. So he said, what can you do to help me out? And we did that. And we said, great, here's what we do. You click on your town, your property type. We've got several statuses in here. You can switch it, but I'm going to leave this default for now of active, closed, and pending. And I'm looking at the last month to date, which is basically, just through February, but this is a weekly dashboard refresh. So you'll always kind of have current info. And now let me close this out of the way, and you can see a lot of dots. So rather than a aggregated line chart or bar chart, each dot is an individual listing on here. And as I hover over, you can see it's based on status. And the lines that are intersecting here, this represents the median closed dollar per square foot on the horizontal and the median sold price on the vertical. And this is where the middle of this particular market is. And that's 261 listings that are making this up. And now how you use this is you can say, hey, all right, my seller, they've got a home that's a little bit smaller. It's 1,200 square feet. And they really did some updates. So they want to sell it for about $925. And I pop those in there. And now what the tool is telling me is that I've got these additional 2 blue lines, and they've moved right over here. And this is saying, hey, if you price your home at $925, this is where it would fall in relation to the rest of the market. And there's a couple of dots on here. I can click on this one and say, all right, you're going to be pretty close to 84 Everdeen Street. Are you actually a comp to that home? And if not, are you nicer? Are you not quite as nice? Where do we need to put that price? And the gauges over here are telling us that that property would be more expensive than 63% of the others in terms of the price, and more expensive than 82% in terms of dollar per square foot. And if you go back and look at kind of the 4 quadrants that this picture has made, up here in the top quadrant, especially this guy way up here at the top at over $2,000 per square foot, this is going to be much more luxurious of a home. It's going to have, the granite countertops, and it's going to be fully landscaped, and it should be fairly updated. Whereas on the opposite corner over here, if you have somebody who wants to get into a fixer-upper and have room to grow and appreciate that home, they might want to be down here in this quadrant. So, you can sort of see the market the way that buyers are seeing it. And that's what makes this such a fun tool, because you really do get that better view to help you. And we don't say use this instead of your comps and your CMAs. We very much like you to use this in conjunction with that, because you're going to use this to say what homes are available and kind of around there. And then you can go pull the rest of that comp information out. So this is just one of the many tools that you have to use. And we hope that you really like this one. The review was my favorite dashboard. This one is Ed's favorite dashboard because he's the bigger data nerd of the two of us. So that's where we are on that one. The other things I want to mention is that on this dashboard, as well as the weekly and the full monthly dashboard, you've got a little question mark down in the corner here. When you click on that, that's going to bump you out to our support site. So after today, if you say, hey, I forgot what she said about that first-time home buyer, you can go over here and you can say, oh, how do I create a first-time home buyer analysis? And we've got use cases on here. We have videos on here on how to do certain things and a lot of fact and information. So you have this available to you. Definitely head over there if you have questions. And the other thing that I didn't mention before that I will go back to, which is a change if you used to use the stats before February, we did recently change the days on market and the sold dollar per square foot from average to median, and that's called out on here. But if you are used to seeing average, then this was probably a big change for you, because what was happening is that in the low inventory market that we've had, all of those homes that have sat around for a long time languishing are now selling. And much like the sales price, those were really skewing that days on market number. This number now as a median aggregation should feel a lot closer to what you are feeling in the market as an agent, and what your buyers and sellers are feeling at how quickly those homes are turning. So hopefully today you got a better understanding of all of the tools available to you. If you leave this class saying, wow, I really like that review dashboard as well, that's the only one I ever really care about and use, then that's a win, because that's the reason we have all the different dashboards, to make sure that you have what you need. And if you only really like one and want to use one, fantastic. If you want to dig in across all of them and go do deep dive analysis on the market insights, that's fantastic too. Whatever you are comfortable with and your clients are comfortable with, to get you the answers you need, makes us happy that the tool works for you. So in closing, if there are things that you can't get done with this, or ideas that you have about, I wish it did this or I wish it did that, we are always evolving these tools. Just like I said, this one was built out of a Boston agent saying, hey, I need some help. Definitely get that feedback to your leadership and your association. And we want to make sure that we're constantly evolving to keep these tools relevant for you. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Again, the video will be available through your association afterwards. And everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you.